And a recent state audit found nearly $25 million in questioned costs. Several agencies were flagged, including DHS, the Mental Health Department, OMES, and other programs. This morning, where that money went and what auditors found. So let's welcome in State Auditor Cindy Berg, currently a candidate for the State Treasurer Office. Thank you so much for being here. We appreciate it.
Oh, thank you for having me on this morning.
Well, let's start with this first question because your office just released the state's federal single audit. So can you explain to our viewers at home what the goal of this audit is?
Yes, so this audit is required by the federal government, and we do it routinely, annually, and it covers the close to $14 billion in expenditures of federal funds that the state of Oklahoma has spent, and this year covers fiscal year 24, the one we just released yesterday.
All right, the amount of question costs, it did go down from last year, according to your report here. The audit, though, brings the 5-year total to more than $200 million. So before we get into y'all's findings and the problems within this audit that you all found, can you talk about what question costs are? Basically define that for our viewers at home right now.
Yes, so question cost means any expenditures made that didn't comply with the guidelines. There may not have been documentation to support them, or maybe they were unreasonable according to federal guidelines. So it's basically anything that any dollar that didn't go in accordance with the grants guidelines that the federal government could request back.
All right, so you all did find some problems in this audit, found that the state did not always follow federal rules. So where did you find most of the problems? What agencies? Because I did list a few that were flagged.
Yes, well, the larger amount was in DHS, but that is one of our larger agencies. So just to break these down, we found some continued issues from the previous audit with DHS daycare funds. You know, back during COVID, the state received close to $800 million for child daycare funds. And we reported last year how some of those funds were misused. Well, we found additional issues this year. And probably the most alarming issue we found with these was that some providers were able to get subsidy payments for children in a number almost double what their licensing capacity was approved for.
Okay.
So there are a lot of red flags as to whether or not those payments were legitimate. Now, I do want to say we have great providers in Oklahoma, but the controls at DHS were so lax, it allows for bad actors to game the system.
All right, so you mentioned there DHS was flagged in this report. It is a pretty large department here in the state. The office does have a deadline coming up, though, related to Oklahoma's SNAP program. Can you talk a little bit more about the error rate and what happens if Oklahoma can't lower that error rate by this deadline?
Yes, so back in the early part of this year, I rang the warning about if we don't get this error rate down to 6%, we're going to have to start taking money out of our limited budget in state government to pay for these SNAP benefits. Historically, the federal government has paid 100% of the SNAP benefits, with Oklahoma only being required to pay some of the administration. With this 6% error rate, if we could get below that, they will continue to pay the 100%. But our error rate is now at 11%, and that means if it stays at that, we could have to pay $235 million, which would take away from infrastructure, public safety, or education.
Is that what a clawback is? Can you explain what a clawback is if that's not what it is, and then also how that could impact Oklahoma taxpayers?
Right, so this is not a clawback. This is just, if we're not going to take care of the SNAP benefits, we're going to have to start paying a portion of them ourselves.
Okay.
The clawback would be more related to the daycare funds that weren't used appropriately.
All right.
Now, I would be remiss if I didn't say that all of these issues we reported were under a former administration in DHS. The current director is doing a good job of trying to get some of these issues cleaned up.
Because I was going to ask, do you have any concerns moving forward when we talk about, what's next and how is this all going to impact Oklahoma taxpayers? Because when you talk about these audits, you talk about the problems, that kind of does raise some red flags for viewers watching, again, taxpayers at home.
Right. Well, the great thing is we have been talking about these issues, and just last year, Representative Judd Strom from Bartlesville led a group of legislators to get 8 accountability bills passed, and it was a bicameral bipartisan support, passed almost unanimously in the House and Senate, and we're going to start seeing these reforms take effect, which will bring about accountability and transparency and hopefully start to correct some of these issues.
So it sounds like you're encouraged by that. But
Yes.
before I let you go here, what is your message, or rather warning, for state lawmakers moving forward now that this report is out?
Well, we all know that our national debt is $40 trillion. Our federal dollars here in Oklahoma are going to start decreasing, and we're not going to have these dollars available to provide services. So we've got to take care of what we are given. And if we could just clean up some of this stuff, we could provide better services to the citizens of Oklahoma.
All right, State Auditor Cindy Bird, thanks for coming in. We appreciate you being here, taking the time. We are going to put a link to your most recent audit on our website, koco.com. So anyone who wants to read it for themselves, you can head to our website right now.